This is part of our Polar Film Festival 2023 event held in conjunction with APECS International's Polar Week. So today we're joined by filmmakers from around the world whose work is currently being showcased during the Polar Film Fest. Just to give you a little bit about how this webinar is going to work, filmmakers are going to be asked to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their films. Then we're going to have some discussion questions, and then we'll open up the floor to questions from the audience. We ask that you type your questions into chat if you have questions for the filmmakers, and then our moderator will ask the questions directly to the group. So there's just a quick reminder that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted up afterward to the USAPECS website. And I'll turn it over to Kristen to go over our code of conduct.
Thanks so much, Susan. So I'm going to go ahead and give you our code of conduct for USAPECS webinars. USAPECS wants to create and foster a welcoming, safe, productive, and inclusive environment. All participants are asked to remain respectful of others' thoughts and opinions and keep an open mind throughout the meeting. If at any time you have any concerns, we encourage you to reach out to one of the meeting coordinators. Please type any questions or comments you have into the chat. Moderators will communicate them to the speaker. We ask that you remain muted when not speaking to reduce background noise. So we'll go ahead and get started with introductions from our wonderful filmmakers.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Bastien Ruols. I'm from France, and I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland, where I do applied geophysics on alpine glaciers. And so for the first 2 years of my project, I've been developing a drone-based ground-penetrating radar systems, which you can see here. And basically, it allows us to see what's inside the ice. So not only the ice thickness, but what we can see, like the water channel, air cavities, these kind of things. And I'm lucky enough to be able to operate it on the Otema Glacier, which is a very scenic place, as you can see. And that's what I tried to show a bit in my little video that I submitted.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline Wexler. I'm an undergraduate at the University of Connecticut, and I'm studying both earth science as well as filmmaking. And last summer, I had the privilege to be a student on the Juneau Ice Field Research Program, and it was there where I filmed the Ice Field and Expedition Memoir. And JERP is a really unique program, and so I wanted to showcase that whole JERP experience within my film. So I spent the entire summer both doing the field work and learning all of the needed glacier rescuing skills and mountaineering skills that we do on the program, as well as filming the whole expedition. And I should have mentioned that JERP is basically this 2-month-long ski traverse across the Juneau ice field, and we're doing science and learning about these fields skills along the way. And I really wanted to hone in on the experience of being on the ice and why JERP is such a unique program. And so the way that I did that was by focusing on a few different people from the program, where they all had their unique perspective and their unique story to tell. And I really enjoyed the process, and it was a wonderful experience, and I'm very thankful for it.
I am Elena Popova. I am from Russia. I'm a marine geologist, and I study mainly sediments in the Central Arctic Ocean, in Arctic Ocean as well, and in the Central. In April, I returned from a 7 month of drifting in the ice within the expedition on board a special ice drifting platform. It's a new vessel which was specifically built for this purpose, and it was its first expedition. And as I had a lot of time for both research and leisure, I've made some shots. I asked some of my colleagues to write some music, and I made a short experimental movie. Interesting fact that this expedition is still going on. So it started last September, it still goes on. And also one small interesting fact that I'm trying to organize a screening of this Polar Film Festival in Russia, and let's see what will happen. So that's it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Patricio Quesada from Chile, South America. I'm originally a filmmaker artist. I was doing research on Antarctic seals, and a friend of mine told me there was an open call to film a scientific expedition on Antarctica. So I sent my project, and they accept my idea, and I stayed with different scientific teams for almost 2 weeks, and I filmed everything they did. I went with them to their field trips, and so after I came back to my country with all these amazing images, I did a story that is called, well, my film that I'm going to show, it's Homo sapiens Antarcticus, and it's a documentary about my vision of what is going on in the world, especially with climate change and global warming. But I put emphasis on the science and scientific importance to battle this. So my film, it's kind of my point of view as an artist, but I think it's also a way to show humanity how late we are to take action in these things, and to show something interesting to people. That's my goal. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sinan. I am working in the Turkish Polar Research Institute in Turkey, and I'm actually captain, but I'm trying to be a scientist. I'm in PhD, and I'm studying on the sea ice in the both polar oceans. This year, we go to the Horseshoe Island in the Antarctic Peninsula. It is very close to the Roterra English research station. We found 2 molting emperor penguins, and we just record them because it is the first time for them to be in there, because the sea ice is melting too fast, and it is too much challenging things for the emperor penguins. So we just recorded, and we are happy to record it, because after our expedition, the publication came from the British Antarctic Survey, and they found a colony is just completely lost. So we found 2 emperor penguins is in some place else. So this is very fascinating thing. Some of them is died, and some of them is living in other places. So this gives us more clues about the animal migration. So we are happy to have these 2 breeding emperor penguins on our islands. So I am happy if you watch our video on the YouTube, and you can make a comment. And also, I just published its research paper on the Norwegian Polar Research Journal. So it is my pleasure to bring new things for the science of the Antarctica. So I'm happy to be in this Polar Film Fest. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me well. My name is Tristan Visser. I'm from the Netherlands, and my film is Underwater. It's a short documentary about me trying to find out if it's possible to make music with a whale. And I'm originally not a filmmaker, but I'm a musician. But I was asked if I wanted to make a short film. And yeah, so I have a hydrophone, and I use water sounds to make music. And for a project, I was on the North Sea. That's where I grew up. And I put my hydrophone in the water, and by accident, I found out how the ferry would sound from the underwater perspective. And that got me interested in noise pollution in the ocean. And I wanted to make a film about that. And I was thinking about what is a nice way to tell this story without being too negative about it. But from a music perspective, I wanted to inspire people to listen to the soundscape underwater. And then, yeah, the nicest idea I was thinking was, like, I was playing in my studio, and I was, with my guitar, I was playing with a humpback whale song. And I used a bass bow, to try to imitate the sound of the humpback whale. And there was one moment where the whale and I would play the same note in my studio, and that's when I knew, like, okay, I have to go out and try to make this musical connection happen in real life. And I got a chance to step on board the sailboat, the May West, in Greenland, and yeah, in the Baffin Bay there were lots of humpback whales in the summer feeding. And that's where I recorded the film in 2019. It's a short film. I hope you guys had the chance to check it out or check it out later. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Pearsall. I'm from the United States. I work for the U.S. Geological Survey, which very broadly studies environmental change within the United States and its territories. And my film is called Coastal Change in Arctic Alaska. That's one of the many projects that the USGS is involved with. And this particular project is looking at the Arctic region of the US, which is in Alaska and on the north slope of Alaska, and studying the rapid changes that are taking place in that region and how they're affecting native communities and important infrastructure. And yeah, it's just a very short kind of snippet that introduces you to some of the scientists that are working in this region and some of the research questions that they have and they're trying to answer. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, ko Vanessa Wells tōko ingoa. Hi everybody, my name's Vanessa Wells and I am coming into you from very early New Zealand at the moment. I first started working in Antarctica 5 years ago and have been lucky enough to travel into the Ross Sea region 3 times over this last few years and working with scientists there. I'm an independent filmmaker and I started working with the community engagement program with Antarctica New Zealand. And on my second trip down there, I travelled down with 2 Māori carvers, traditional carvers, and they didn't know they wanted to film. They just said, oh no, we just want some stills and a little bit of video to be able to put something on our local news. And I was like, no, you don't, you want to film. And they were still like, no, man, we don't want to film, we don't want to film. And I was like, yes, you do. And so eventually we just kind of went, look, I'll just put something together and see what you think and see if we've got a bit of a story here. And so I sort of put a couple of clips together and they went, oh yeah, okay, yeah, maybe we do. And so we worked really closely together and sort of ran everything backwards and forwards. So it's a real collaborative kind of an affair. And then funnily enough, it was a film. I'm now working on a feature documentary in the Ross Sea region about 3 women from 3 different generations. And it was Pat Langhorne, who is an emeritus professor at Otago University. And she sent me the clip to this wonderful organization and the online festival that you guys have got. And she said, do you want to send your short film into this one? And I'm so glad I did, because you guys are wonderful. So it's been a fabulous festival to be part of. Thank you so much for showing my film.
Hello, everybody. I'm Özgün Oktar from Turkey. I'm here to present Şebnem Coşkun, the filmmaker. She works for Anadolu Ajansı, which is the Turkish news agency, national news agency, and she works there as a photo reporter. She had her degree, bachelor degree from Marmara Fine Arts Faculty, the photography division. Now she continues her master at the same division. She works usually with social documentaries, natural history, pollution, recycling, and climate change projects, including the polar regions. She had some chance to visit Chad, Niger, Malaysia, Thailand, Russia, Spain, Greece, Maldives, Antarctica, and Arctic many times. to produce some documentaries and to do photography projects. Within her professional life, which is 15 years for now, some of her works been published in BBC, The Guardian, Times, Geo Magazine, Independent. She participated in 4 different Antarctic and Arctic expeditions. The movie, which is in the system, had been recorded in the last Turkish Arctic expedition. The polar bears, they just showed up while the ship was stopped for scientific sampling. And it's known that the polar bears are in danger because of the climate change and because of the decreasing sea ice. And they are looking for food all the time. So this was one of the reasons that they were just around. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, everyone. Wow, it's super interesting to hear about all of the different backgrounds and places from all over the world that are joining us. We have researchers and filmmakers and musicians. And so now we're going to hear a bit more. So my name is Zach Labe, so I'm part of USAPECS, and I'm going to sort of be moderating some of the questions for the rest of this webinar. And we're going to start off with some general questions, and then we can take a few from the audience. And I'd like to get started off with sort of hearing from everyone for these questions. So maybe we can go in the same order that we did for the introductions. And a lot of you talked about some of your goals and sort of why you made the film. But I think it would be really interesting to hear more about you. So who was your target audience? And is particularly like, as viewers watch through things like here at the film festival, what is one sort of message from your film that you hope that viewers take away from watching? So just sort of, as people are interested in making films, for example, about their research, it's really interesting to hear about some of the different audiences. So I think we can get started, and again, sort of following that same order.
Okay, so my turn to start. So my first objective was just to make a little movie understandable for my friends and relatives, to be honest. So at the beginning, because I like to take pictures and videos on the field, we also have a little drones. I just like to get things on I made a little story for my family so they can at least understand what I do. But then I got, I was a bit surprised, but I got very good feedbacks about it. So I worked a bit more on it. And then I submitted it to a conference in Europe, which is called Alpine Glaciology Meeting, which is a real conference. And I was a bit stressed because I was the only guy not coming with a normal presentation. I had my little video, and it was screened in front of, all the big fishes of the European glaciology, I would say. So yeah, I got good feedbacks, and I did a version 2 taking into account their comment, and I submitted it to your festival. So thanks for accepting it. And so my objective at first was just to make my research a bit more affordable for anyone, and I hope I succeeded somehow. I hope I answered the question correctly. Okay.
I guess my goal for making the ice fields documentary, at least the main goal, was to just immerse the viewer in what it's like to be on the ice field and what it's like to be in JERP as someone on this expedition, because it really is a truly unique experience. And at least every person that I've talked to that's been in JERP before has said it's transformed them in some way, whether that's just personally or professionally. And it really forces you to grow out there. So I really wanted to show the documentary from this sort of humanitarian lens, where I'm focusing more on the people. I'm also talking about the science, but it is a really important part in growing, I feel. And so I wanted to showcase that. And I also just wanted to shed light on SHRP itself, because I actually had never really heard of the program until I did a huge deep dive into research and polar science. So upon entering college, that's when I first heard about it. And you know, my school doesn't have many connections in the polar sciences, and so I want to try to make it easier for people that might find this interesting. And so I've been showcasing it to my university's outing club, which is a pretty big group on campus. It's just a group of people that are interested in the outdoors, as well as some people that are interested in field science. So I guess my target audience for this film is sort of my age group, as well as students that are entering into college, graduate students as well that are also interested in the field sciences and in glacier science in general.
Okay, so about my film, in the very beginning of the expedition, the scientists, decided that we will make a documentary about our life, as it was a special expedition for us, like I think like many other expeditions to many other researchers. And I volunteered to be an operator, to maybe like a camera DOP, like just film everything. And our geophysicist became a director, and we didn't have a script. We like, let's film everything, and then we will glue the shots together. And I said, yeah, okay. But eventually I found out that I filmed a lot, like I have a lot of shots, and I realized that, okay, they will be in a documentary, like 5% of it, and maybe I should make my own movie, as I have some other motivation. For example, I really wanted to work with musicians on board, because of course some of the researchers, they are musicians. They brought their instruments like theremin vox on board, like it's a really interesting instrument. And I realized that I want to make a movie with them. And the third thing is I saw on the ice shootings once. It's like a scientific shooting, but anyway, they uploaded it like to open access. It inspired me hugely. I also realized I want to ask them to use them in my film. So like some of these factors, yeah, influenced me, and this is how I created the movie. Yeah.
In my case, my first goal was to respond to what they asked me, because I was doing like media coverage for the Chilean Antarctic Institute's scientific expedition. But then because I had this many had hours of video, and so I tried to put on a story that could express what really surprised me in Antarctica, and that was how fast is I don't know how to say, but it's how fast we are not. Everything is changing so fast there, and so that inspired me to bring on some artists, like they do illustrations, to create some cartoons. So we made like a really we tried to make a different film, not like to focus on the landscapes of Antarctica, on the ice, but we focus more on what scientists were doing. Most of them were doing research on climate change. So that thing really inspired me a lot to see how samples can change the world, or how different how the work can lead to international decisions, for example. So in a way, I want to express as an artist teamwork. I think teamwork is what we need today to make the world a better place. It's cliche, but it's real. But at the same time, I just wanted to. This is my first long documentary film. It's 75 minutes long, And I really appreciate this opportunity to participate here because I just showed like
I think we have to move on to Sinan, and then we can jump back to Patricia when he comes back in.
Okay, thank you. This was my second time in Antarctica, and I have many cameras, but I'm not professional cameraman. But I'm actually making a science for the sea ice, and I also make many extreme sports. So when I go to the Antarctica, I saw all of the animals, the humpback whales, the orca, all of the penguin species which are living in the Antarctica, and I didn't see the emperor penguins. So I have a very lucky person. So in this year I saw it. And when we saw it, we just surprised because we didn't expect the emperor penguins in our positions. So we just create another job, another mission in that time for us. So we just start making a movie about the emperor penguins. Then we create it and turn it to the scientific research. Then we published a paper. So if you go watch our films, so you can find it. It's very simple shooting, and then you can in the end you can see our papers. So I hope that this will be teach something to the people. So we will do this for the films because we publish a paper and then we make the films with our short movies. So I hope that we will found the better things for the animals for the future. So I have actually worked for the sea ice in this expedition. The filming is just one of my hobbies. So I just came to here with the side works. Thank you.
Right. So I guess my about my film, my goal was simply put to inspire people to listen to the underwater soundscape through the song of the humpback whale. And I'm reading a question here by Erika. Hello, Erika. Thank you for your question. Nice to see you again. How do you view human and non-human relations as you were experiencing them during your voyage? So after this trip I did in the making of this film, last year I stepped on board the same sailing vessel again, the May West, and we passed through the Northwest Passage. From Greenland to Alaska we sailed 2.5 months to find the song of the bowhead whale. And in this 4 years, I'm working with whale song and try to connect to these whales. I've kind of stepped off the idea that I want to communicate with the whale in a literal sense. It's like a friend of mine made this a connection the other day. Like, if I would play music with a person I don't speak the language of, we are still able to create music together. And it's the same with the whale. We don't speak the same language, so I don't see music as a language anymore, but we can still have a connection on a musical level if the whale would react to me. And I think in that sense it changed. And just a short remark, like I think like to have people listen to the whale song, for example, there's a beautiful example that helped saving the humpback whale. When in the 1970s, Roger Payne found out that the song of the humpback whale resembles music very much, it was put out on a record, and it's the most sold nature album around the world. And yeah, through this discovery around the world that this song was so musical, people grew appreciation towards the humpback whale. And it was because of that the Whaling Commission put a ban on whaling, and the humpback whale grew back to a healthy population. I think that's a beautiful example how music can relate to such a topic.
Before I go, Patricio, did you want to finish before you cut off?
Thank you, but it doesn't matter. I don't remember where I left the conversation, to be honest. But go on, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So I do science communication for the U.S. Geological Survey, which is a federal agency. And my background is in print journalism, but I do a lot of multimedia stuff. And our aim with communicating what our science and its relevance to the public is basically trying to connect. We studied natural hazards in particular, and trying to connect the science with sort of real world relevant examples of how that science is being applied to mitigate risks from natural hazards, to inform planning for the future. And in particular, the film about coastal change in Arctic Alaska is focusing on this group of scientists that are studying this very rapid coastal change on the North Slope of Alaska, where permafrost thaw and coastal bluff retreat is happening at really an unprecedented rate. And there are Native Alaskan communities and a lot of energy infrastructure that is being imperiled by these rapid rates of change on the Arctic coast. And my intent with creating the film was to focus on the scientists themselves and let them, in their own words, describe what the science is, what questions it's addressing, sort of its importance, its relevance to them personally, and also to the communities that they work with up there, and just the sort of larger ecosystem of the North Slope of Alaska. And in the film, we use a lot of footage that the scientists themselves shot, so it's a lot of like, cell phone footage, and I wanted to include that perspective because these folks are, they are very passionate about what they do, and they are very excited about the work that they do, and they feel very strongly about it. And I wanted to convey a little bit of that, their personalities, that's going into this science. So that's all. Thank you.
That sounded lovely, Peter. And actually, I'm following on. I think my film has kind of slightly similar themes, in that even though I was slightly flippant about how, I sort of made the film and kind of went, talked them into it. We were actually really specific about the audience that we had, and certainly being there had a very strong reason. So we were part of New Zealand's Ross Ramp project, which is part of the Ross Sea region's monitoring of the Ross Sea's marine protected area, which is part of CAMLA's Ross Sea MPA. And in particular, the New Zealand and USA, we're running a monitoring program over the 35 years of the MPA to try and ascertain, sort of how much protection is actually working within the region. And part of that, from New Zealand's perspective, is communicating and community engagement back in New Zealand. And there's a real issue with trying to engage at an Indigenous level in New Zealand as well. So this particular project was specifically focused to take back to marae in New Zealand, and to travel around local iwi and local tribe, and to engage at a very grassroots local level, and bring back connections with Antarctica and with the South, and start to spark some scientific engagement. And I'm just going to post in the chat, there's actually a website that was created as part of this, and that was where I suppose I was like, yeah, I really think film would work beautifully here, because they were originally going to be working with sort of stills. If I put that in there, MaoriAntarctica.org. And so it was going to be short, very short snippets. They were just going to link to the news articles that had come from this particular trip and the stills. But from my perspective, film connects at such an emotional level, and you can go to that extra layer. And it was really interesting, Tristan, when you're talking about the humpback whales and the sounds. From my perspective, and having it been my second trip to the Ross Sea, and Scott Base and McMurdo as well, anybody who's been to McMurdo, there's an awful lot of Weddell or Weddell, depending on what school you went to, seals there, and the booming and clicking of the seals is just phenomenal. And when my two carvers were carving, their work on their wood was just incredible, because it was just so much like the seals. And so in my film, I really married the soundtrack of the men working with the soundtrack of the Weddell seals, and we patterned the sound design. We spent more time on the sound design almost than we did on the visuals, and we laid the two together and overlaid them and timed them and stretched them out, and we had so much Weddell footage, audio to be able to work with, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And kind of really interwove that human, non-human, which interestingly in Te Ao Māori, the Māori world, that differentiation just does not exist. So it's really funny how it's quite a thing within filmmaking world in the last few years to talk about that. But in a Māori culture perspective, they're sort of looking at you going, what do you mean? There is no separation. We are one. So I think we have a lot to learn, and certainly in making this film and putting it out there into Māori Antarctica has been just an incredible experience from my perspective. And Silawehi and Billy Van Utrecht, who were the two scientists who led this particular kaupapa or project, were really opened up my world. As a Pākehā New Zealander, I found it incredibly enriching. Unfortunately, COVID hit just when they were about to start the physical marae tour, so it all had to move online. But in some ways, it then makes it more open to other cultures from around the world to be able to experience it. And I know that Billy has actually just travelled to Alaska, so he has been able to, take some of his work around the world as well. So yeah, so we had a very specific, so going back to the question, we had a very specific audience in mind, and who we were targeting in particular. And the film was being very much used as a conversation starter. So we wanted to show something that was lighter and engaging and made people enjoy looking at the scenery and start to think about the region, to be able to then stop watching the film and move into an hour's conversation. And that was the whole point of it, was as a conversation piece. So we were pretty targeted with what we wanted. And the fact that it's gone on to play in film festivals around the world has been just an added bonus that we've just adored. So yeah, that's me.
I would like to start with the answer for the questions in the chat box. Seeing a mom and pup on an ice floe, which is not a pack ice and which is far away from the coastline, is kind of, I mean, a double emotion. It's a good and bad emotion. But in a part of your heart, it feels happy because of seeing that they are still reproducing. But the other part of your heart knows that their region, their world is actually collapsing by the climate change, by the anthropogenic effects. So the film actually it contains both footage from Antarctica and the Arctic region, Arctic expeditions. So we all know that as the scientific part, the climate change affects all the world, but mostly the polar regions and the creatures, the animals in the polar regions. So in the movie, we put both footage from different polar regions together to express our emotion, to show the general public how the climate change affects the polar regions as well as their own lands, like Turkey, which is a middle latitude country. Most of the polar animals, their lives are depends on sea ice. In the Arctic, almost the 1/3 of the sea ice is permanently lost. So by this film, we just show the public how it affects the animals there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. As we can see here by the films that are showcased, there's certainly a wide range of motivation behind the films and different target audiences. We have about 15 minutes left or so, so I think we're going to move on to some of the questions that we've been getting in the chat box. So we'll get started. This is a question from Susan for Patricio. In your full film, you included animated scenes intermixed with your documentary footage. Can you discuss this choice and what you hoped your audience would take away from the film?
Thank you for the question. I really put an effort to build like a proper story for what I saw and what I had in video. And I thought that I really felt that my trip to Antarctica was like going to space. It was really quite similar. It's like taking a military airplane to the base, and everyone in the labs were wearing masks. And what surprised me was that there was not snow. I went to the summer in King George Island, and I was really surprised that there were really not. It wasn't like the picture you imagine when you go to Antarctica, that you see ice and snow everywhere. So that really moved me, and everything looked different. It was so it really opened my vision to say, well, this is like being really in space on another planet. So we an illustrator from my country, he drew and created like space animals, like water seals in astronaut costumes, Kento penguins, and it's really quite like an army of Antarctic animals. So that, I think that mixed like the concept of going in another planet, but at the same time, I decided to include them to say that animals, well, this is not real, but animals also want to take part in this reconstruction message, because that's a message I want to express with the film. It's like, let's do something, we can, let's work together. So I was really inspired for that. That was my choice, to put a little bit of fiction in this real story. And I hope, answering to the second question, I hope that the audience really get connected with Antarctica, maybe because that's the place I'm documenting, but to know that everything is slowly getting distracted. And I think science should be put on the front line when they take decisions. That's also a message I want the audience to get. And finally, I really want to express my love and passion for Antarctic seals and penguins, because I think that's my child instinct in this, maybe because I really love seals. But I hope the audience just gets something fun to watch and to get involved maybe in global warming effects. Yeah, I think that's the message for the audience. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Patricio. I really resonated with that answer. I visited the Arctic once, and when my family and friends ask me what my trip was like, I always describe it like it was visiting space, that it was another planet. I just wanted to make a general announcement from the chat in case you didn't see. This is by Alex, who is also part of USAPECS, and she just wanted to highlight that as part of USAPECS community, we have sort of a newsletter that goes out through our website. So we welcome, any films or papers or presentations or other announcements as related to early career researchers. You can sort of enter it in on this form, and it does not have to be just in the Arctic. It can be any of the polar sciences. It can be anything related to the cryosphere. So just wanted to give an announcement through that. And I think we'll take another question from the chat. This was a question from Erica to Elena about her movie, A Deep Movie. And could you briefly explain the expedition that was portrayed in your film a bit more? And why did you choose to bring a sense of comedy to your film by the use of music and sounds?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. So about the expedition, probably you all know how Fridtjof Nansen had this idea to build a special ship to be frozen in the Arctic ice, the special form, so that the ice wouldn't crash it, so that they could drift. The original idea was to get to the North Pole, but he realized that the current doesn't go via the North Pole. But they drifted anyway, and since then, I don't know, Soviet scientists, they actually built station just on the ice, like tents on the ice, and they used to drift with the ice flows, just like the same path as Fridtjof Nansen, more or less. And they did the research there, but now the ice doesn't allow to make a proper station just on the ice. And they had this idea for a while to create a special ship, so it wouldn't be necessary to live on the ice itself. So we could just froze the ship into the ice and it could drift. And they did it finally. It was the first expedition of this ship. But funny thing that probably the ice is going to melt really soon. I don't know how soon, and maybe we won't need it anymore. We will be able to go to the Arctic on any ships in general. But yeah, so our expedition was really multidisciplinary. There were many research areas like marine biology, marine geology, oceanography, hydrochemistry, geophysics, meteorology, something else probably. So we studied everything we could. Yes, so I guess this is the answer. And the second, I read it earlier and I still can't make an answer. Why did I bring a sense of comedy into this film? Actually, I can just say that it was never meant to be informative. It was never meant to be like a serious film about our research, how we seriously, I don't know, do a serious stuff there, because this is not how I actually treat it. And I just wanted to, I wanted the viewers to have some emotions, to have some impressions, I don't know. Yeah, just when I edited the movie, I just wanted to make something of my own, my personal impressions of what is going on board, and somehow it ended up a little bit funny. That's okay, but I didn't really mean it. I didn't want to make a comedy. So I wanted to make something like anti-documentary. That's it. Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you. And I have a general question, so anyone is welcome to answer this. And it's a bit about how, how these films get produced. So I realize we have a lot of backgrounds, from professional filmmakers to researchers. And a lot of the members for at least USAPECS also come from a sort of researching background. And I think there's a question, at least for me and many of us, about sort of how do you put a film together? For example, if we do field work, how could we go about producing something to sort of highlight our research? So welcome anyone to sort of suggest about, if they have any tools or tips about how to get started in producing even a short film about your research.
Maybe I can give some tips. When I was go to the Erasmus in my university times, I just meet with a tripod. So you know the tripods. So it is the best thing, it is the best friends, or you can call it buddy or something else. You need tripod one, but if you have two tripods, you can make an excellent movie, I think. So also we have some free softwares, everybody can download it. And my camera was a DJI. It is very small, like this one. It is more smaller than my cell phone. So these things can make a 4K video. So it is very good. But the most important thing for the Antarctica, we have wind. So we need some things to protect the microphones. So that's the most important thing. And maybe the Tristan can say more about the sounds. How can we take the sounds? Because the best sound is underwater. So it is the perfect movie. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you.
I would add, as a filmmaker, if you are working with other people, to be around them enough and keep asking them lots of questions so they get used to you being there, so they stop being too practiced at answering questions. And so you don't get those kind of normal, like TV grab practiced sort of answers. And if you are a scientist yourself and somebody is asking you questions, get used to answering them in a much more natural way, so that you are just talking to a friend or yourself, or being a slight, somebody once told me that you're being a heightened version of yourself. So trying to do that. And just becoming part of the furniture when you're there as a filmmaker, as opposed to somebody kind of removed. And if you can get into the action and get stuck in, it becomes a much more personal and engaged film, I think, as well. And I echo the tripod thing. Yeah, don't make it all handheld or we'll all be motion sick. So yeah.
All right, thank you. That was some really great advice. And I think we'll just have one more question. Again, I'll pose this to anyone who would like to answer this on a panel. And we're curious if any of you have future plans for films or pursuing this sort of area down the road. We're thinking about polar sciences or alpine sciences in documentaries or other productions. And we'd be really interested if you could give us a short preview while we're still here.
I can share one if no one else. So I have actually in this year, I make a video series for the Antarctica. Unfortunately, it is in Turkish, but in YouTube, you can just put it the subtitles. It will be easy to watch. We bring the high school students to make a project on Antarctica and also to Arctic. So I will share the link with you in the chat. So it will be continuously to the end of this year. So maybe it can give you all of us a future and tips and other things. So I think the video things is the most important thing to understand, or telling the science what we are doing in Antarctica or Arctic to everyone. So these polar film fets are quite good. So rather than us, the USAPECS should continue for the polar film weeks, festivals, and we can make it more great audience, and we can bring more people. So that will be perfect thing for the future. Thank you so much for the team.
Yes, and I'm working on a feature documentary, a full-length 90-minute film on set in the Ross Sea region, based on sea ice, so all about the cryosphere. Dr. Natalie Robinson, who was the woman that I met on my very first trip to Antarctica, she and her team, just in the last season, or they've been working on it for a few years, but they've invented a way to slice through the sea ice and sample the entire biology right through from the top right through to the platelet ice layer underneath. And it's actually the first time they've managed to do it and get the biology complete, and it's the first time it's been done in the world successfully. So they're getting quite a lot of interest on a scientific side, but it was really cool from a filmmaker's perspective to be able to be there with biologists and physiologists and oceanographers and everything else as well, all working on the same project. But from a climate perspective, what was interesting is we have Jackie Stewart, who's 31 as the PhD student. We have Natalie Robinson, 44, who juggles her life with 3 kids. And then we have Pat Langhorne, who's mentoring the whole lot, and she's 68. So the tagline is 3 women, 4 decades, 1 continent. And we're working on that at the moment and taking it around film markets to get it fully funded and into post-production, but we're 90% shot. And I can't show you the trailer right here today, but we're at a trailer stage and about to go into rough cut, and I'll put the tag to the Film Collaborative site, which is the US site. I'll put it in the chat for you. So look out for that next year.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think we'll come to a wrap up, and I'll hand it over to Susan for a few closing remarks.
Okay, so I just would like to, again, thank all the filmmakers for, again, sharing your films and also for being here. For some of you, it is the morning on Friday. For others of you, it is the morning on Thursday. So it is really wonderful that you all take the time and meet with us. I'd also like to thank the audience, IARPIC and APEC International, for all their work and their help with putting together the film festival and this webinar. And I would like to encourage everyone to stay connected if possible, and watch the film, share all the different films, and communicate with each other. There are contact numbers or contact addresses for each of the filmmakers along with their film up on the USAPECS website. So thank you again very, very much. And really, your films are wonderful. I've watched them all, so they are really great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan, for putting it together.
Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone.